You're listening to the Road to Wisdom podcast, weaving stories told by wonderful minds about all things motherhood, health, intimacy, politics, nature, and everything in between.
Join us on an adventure discovering unique experiences that we can learn from to enhance the ways in which we live.
We are your hosts, Chloe
and Keshia. Welcome everyone to the Road to Wisdom podcast. Today we are recording from Unscripted App Studios. So here's the beautiful couch. And thanks, Cheryl.
It's very aesthetically pleasing. I'm eyeing off the coffee cups, plates.
It's just beautiful. It's beautiful.
It smells new and clean. Anyway, we're having a little solo cast today because we haven't done it for a while.
I know. Look,
we actually haven't been in person for a while, and we
did get to for Lisa's recording,
yeah.
and that's the first time in
ages.
Quite a while.
When Doggy said Happy New Year or something, I was like, what? But we're actually supposed to have a recording before this, and they cancelled, and it's kind of like somewhat nice because we actually got to hang out because
have a little dinner.
Long lost friend these days.
We wined and dined each other without the wine because we've got a really serious conversation coming up after this one.
Yeah, it actually ties into what we're talking about now in many ways. It's just a different lens and a different kind of prong to the chat. But after we spoke about abortion to Joanna.
That was hot. That blew up.
Stuff blew up and the episode went pretty crazy. And, you know, like even prior to that in my DMs on Instagram and just in person conversations with other friends and, you know, like just the mum catch-ups, it was just the topic of conversation. And I found it really interesting how things were being spoken about behind closed doors. And then, you know, like I was actually shocked because I was like, oh, I just thought the general consensus was that abortion was a really good thing and most people were really pro-abortion. But I was wrong.
Yeah. And I think one of the most shocking things that happened in our DMs and comments and again, for me, just talking to people out in the wild, was just how common it was for women as young ladies, young women to get an abortion and regret it because they didn't know or think or weren't informed as to what an abortion really is. And I think there's like a bit of a delusion out there that it's like a form of contraception. Like, oh yeah, it's just like the last resort of contraception rather than it's actually
a pregnancy and a full procedure. And sometimes the things that can happen after the abortion are really big things that we just never really think, oh, you know, that could happen, or it's not something that we believe that will have such a big impact on us. I've always been led to believe that if I accidentally get pregnant, oh gee, I can get an abortion. Not that I ever will. I think
you're past that. You're past that.
To be completely honest, like even when I was younger, I've never accidentally got pregnant. And you know, but I think when I was younger, I thought, oh well, you know, it's good that I could just get an abortion. But even times where, you know, like if you've listened long enough now, you know that all my babies were not consciously, well, not unconsciously.
You weren't trying.
But I wasn't, we've always just been like, they've just come to us. And, you know, there was a couple of times I was like, actually just one time where I was like, far out, I'm so not ready for this. And it would have been one of those times where I would have considered it, but there's no way in the moment that I could have gone through with that. So I don't know if I would have ever been able to go through it regardless. But don't need my story, like personal stories, but it's like for context, I think most women do think like that, right? Like when we're young, we're like, oh,
I was the same. Like, and you know this already, but I guess I'll share. We'll do a little overshare. But no, like on 2 occasions.
Poor bad Keshia. No, it's actually far from true. Let's pretend for a second.
But on 2 occasions, and it was with Togger. Like I've never fallen accidentally pregnant out of that.
Yeah.
But on 2 occasions, I freaked, absolutely freaked out.
Yeah.
And and was like, I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
And for different reasons, both times. And we ended up having those babies. And like what I think is the most heartbreaking thing is that, and I've shared this with you before, but like both those pregnancies and births and babies were outrageously healing for our family, and like the family dynamic, like my relationship with Toga, our finances, it really forced us to have a look at ourselves and grow up a bit. And it was challenging, but we used that challenge to grow.
Yeah.
And no one tells you that.
No.
Like no one counsels you that is a possibility. So
it's
I
almost
just
like the other side, right? It's like, well, if you can't afford it,
yeah,
have an abortion, or you're not in the right place, or you haven't got your own house, or like whatever it is. It's like, well, it's actually potentially, if you look at it from a different lens, like if you accidentally get pregnant in a relationship, there's nothing that will catapult you in the right direction quicker, really, if you think about it.
Yeah.
If you really
but
get
having
to work.
said that, I think it is a very high portion of abortions. Like it's women in our situation. They're married, they've got children already, but it's like there's not the support I totally feel that, and or they feel that they can't afford another child, or like what are you going to give to that child? And God, I absolutely went through all of those thoughts as well, and or like their partner, husband is really unsupportive. And on the flip side, I mean, I did see an article, because I guess after doing research now my algorithms tweaked to that, but I did see an article by the Free Press, and they were reporting on men who have lost their babies. And it wasn't miscarriage loss. It was, they didn't get a say in, and I mean, obviously this is multi-layered, but it was like these men and how broken they were for the babies that they were never going to have. Yeah, they would have been really supportive, or maybe even not. Maybe like it was a past tense thing, you know, they were all happy for the abortion or didn't want to have the baby, and then it's like years later they're regretting it. So,
well, a lot of men like vocalize their worries and fears about a baby coming into the world as well. Like I remember, this might be too much info for share for Brenton, but like when we were pregnant with Birdie, he was just like, I don't think I'm ready. Like they do express that, and like if a woman hears that, that can be shattering, and like you know that can be enough to be like. But at the same time, like men will process,
I'll do this.
I'll just do that. Yeah. So, you know, whereas they probably just need that time. In fact, the time that it takes to get to the baby being born is often enough time, if you don't have the option, you know, to just be like, okay, I'm arising to the challenge, or but yeah, no, it was a really big unravel, and there were a lot of people come out of the woodworks for that Joanne conversation, and I was even surprised at how many people were actually so supportive. We were so scared, because we were like, what are people going to say? Like we're going to get cancelled for this, or like we pushed it back a couple of weeks because we were like,
we were nervous.
Yeah, we were really nervous about it, but I think like it was really well received. There were a lot of people who were like actually really supportive, but then there was like I think a couple of people who were just like, this is misinformation. This person is really pro or anti, you know, abortion. And essentially like if you promote this messaging, then you're putting women's rights at risk, which you and I have spoken about
at length
so much, trying to understand this perspective of like how could this happen, and like what the language is and the understanding around these abortion laws. And like
I think for anyone tuning in and you haven't listened to our chat with Joanna, please go back and do. It's quite sensitive subject matter, but it is well worth a listen. But I think we did receive messages or like comments from two particular people who were quite distressed, saying that by sharing Joanna's work, we are going to send women back into the Stone Age, and you know, women will die if they can't have abortions. Was a big thing. And I guess we both reflected on that and did some research. And so, because we I guess both of us don't know with especially with late term abortions, and this was more in regards to late term abortions, but we did some research and we will be following that line a little bit.
We have booked a guest to talk about this.
Yeah, an obstetrician. Yeah, and yeah, well, actually, I won't say too much. I'll let him do the talking, but I think he'll have a really good balanced perspective on it.
I think some of the things that I thought were quite amazing when I was doing the research post that chat was the language around it, and a lot of the language that we were getting was, based around like women's rights and things like that. And when I went away and looked at it, I found it really interesting that the whole definition of abortion was something that I hadn't even really considered at this point still.
Yes.
And it was like one of the arguments was that if a woman's having an ectopic pregnancy and abortion is against the law, then they'll die. Yeah, they can die. And I was like, well, that's a big conflicting piece of information for me. So when I looked at it, the World Health Organization said that an ectopic pregnancy, an abortion, the definition of an abortion is
implantation within the womb.
Yeah, so like it's actually removing something from oh my God, I'm going to act this because it's not fresh in my brain anymore. I'm thinking about friggin' demographics now for our next conversation. It's like in and out. But basically to really paint a picture, it was like anything inside the womb, inside the uterus to be specific. And an ectopic pregnancy is happening, it's outside of that realm.
Yeah.
And so basically treatment for an ectopic pregnancy is not an abortion.
No, that is actually healthcare, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because neither the mother or the child is surviving that.
Yeah.
So it's like there is no law. And I think actually any doctor who refused
it's against the law to not treat a woman. Yeah. So the woman will always come first in a pregnancy, not the baby. So they'll never try to save the baby's life by law over the mothers. So if a mother goes into a hospital presenting with an ectopic pregnancy or like whatever it is, they by law have to treat her. So they can't be like, we're confused. So a lot of and then I looked at the mainstream language, right? And I was like, why are people so confused about this? Because like this is the World Health Organization. Most people trumpet this shit for breakfast. They love it. Like whatever they say goes. And so I thought it was just a bit weird, like why are women so confused about this? And so I looked at Googled the mainstream, like Daily Mail, like your freaking New York Times and all of that about abortion laws and, Roe versus Wade and all that. And a lot of the language was like women are doctors and healthcare providers are really confused with what would happen and how will they understand and navigate these new rules. And it seemed like all of the arguments and all of the people getting really upset about it were kind of just spinning shit. And it wasn't really rooted in facts. No. It just was creating hysteria.
It was creating hysteria.
And so people are like, women will die. And I'm assuming this is where this narrative comes from.
And I think one of the things that we do want to tackle is, okay, what is there, especially in late term, because I think late term, that is just in that third trimester, it really seems unnecessary. But we did have a few women argue that women will die if they can't receive abortions in the third trimester. So I think what we would really like to address with our obstetrician that we get on is, okay, what are the life-threatening things for a woman in late term where she must deliver unfortunately for the language, but dead baby versus an alive baby, because abortion essentially is that.
That really confused me in the argument. So for context, we had a person who is a midwife quite upset about the episode and was trying to educate us on the facts. And she had said basically that she had been
present
when an obstetrician had told the mother that they had to kill the baby in utero.
Yeah.
And then deliver the dead baby because there was some complication.
And the complications she listed were things like hyperemesis, preeclampsia, there was another one, premature rupture of membranes. Yeah. And things where I've never heard that terminating the pregnancy and terminating your baby is necessary in order for you to live. So yeah, we're just going to get some clarification on that. I think will be good. And then I guess we can go into also what is an abortion, especially in the early term, because I think it would be really good for women to have a resource prior to ever needing to be in a doctor's office about what an abortion is, like what to expect, what are complications that can arise, and then you can make a really informed decision before you're ever in a doctor's office. Because I think that's when it's really it's heartbreaking. Like you've got to make these decisions under pressure. It's not ideal. So
no, it's absolutely not. And like, you know, we always talk about educating ourselves about birth and pregnancy, whatever, so we can make an informed choice. But like early pregnancy, early unwanted pregnancy, or early pregnancy that you're not really sure was a mistake, basically, an accidental pregnancy or something like that. I just feel like that is it should be treated with the same kind of mindset as an intentional pregnancy or a birth, because it is a pregnancy. Yeah. Like it is happening to our bodies. Yeah. And often like women will go through abortion in complete silence as well.
Yes.
Like
and
they would battle it alone.
Well. Because I guess, and look, people speak about the stigma around abortion all the time, which yes, there is a lot of stigma around abortion, but if you are super informed and you go through that decision, you actually need postpartum care. Like it's and arguably worse than a miscarriage, because for a miscarriage, it's something hasn't aligned and the body has chosen to, you know, there is somewhat of a natural process with a miscarriage, but when you're forcing it through drugs, there's a bit of a disconnect there, and that woman needs to be looked after. Like you need to be treated like you're postpartum. Yeah. So if you can be really informed in the lead up to, and look, and I think, and I mentioned this in Joanna's podcast, there were also women that I've heard stories where it was just a heavy bleed and I continued on with life and didn't even think about it afterwards, which is fantastic. We don't...
Good.
Yeah, great. But that doesn't seem to be the bulk of these women going through it.
Especially when I put that Q&A out there, majority of the women said that they didn't really know what the procedure looked like. Yeah. And didn't know that a baby could be born alive after an abortion, especially like a later term. Later term abortion.
Not in that first stage, but
yeah, gosh, no.
But you don't even realise that you could, like, what is going to come out as well. No. Because you are birthing still in that first trimester, and you like I think a lot of women are just completely shocked by what they see. Yeah.
But also like a lot of women really regretted their abortions. Yeah. And so that could they go back and choose something different, they 100% would. And that was like a majority of people talking about it. And then there was like women who were clearly confused, being like, yeah, but like sleeping around was really good for like discovering, you know, things about myself. And so like, it's great that I have the ability, like, you know, there's a lot of like different kind of, you know, branches to this tree. And
maybe we also need to discuss contraception and how effective contraception is, because
which we like kind of have, but people are like, fertility awareness method. I'm not.
But like, okay, so fertility awareness method, depending on how you do it, because I know some people do it quite successfully, but
I don't know anyone who's doing it.
I know a lot of people who haven't. But like even forms of contraception, like you could be on the pill, you can take the morning after pill, you can use condoms, you can use diaphragms, copper IUDs.
Wait, can you still buy a diaphragm?
You can still buy diaphragms.
Damn.
Yeah, spermicide. Okay, so there's all these options, which I think most of our audience would be clued in on.
Honestly, I thought a diaphragm was like a thing of the 90s, 80s, 70s.
What, back in the day?
I've
they
never
used to
seen
use
them.
like a lemon.
I've
half a
never,
lemon.
yeah, but I've never seen a diaphragm for sale in the shop. Have you?
Looked for one though?
I assume they're next to the condoms and I've looked for them.
No. I think you have to get them behind the counter.
Exactly my point.
Let's figure this one out so we're not giving false information, because right now is misinformation, friends. But we, I think we go into those form of contraceptions. And like, again, before you cut me off, I was going to say most of our audience would be clued in on like the side effects of said contraceptions. But like also they don't work. And I love like, who was I listening to? Louise Perry, obviously. Always Louise Perry. But she was looking at, actually it was Mary Harrington in her book. She speaks about the sexual revolution, and that was when obviously the pill came in, and then which allowed for the sexual revolution. And the rates of abortion skyrocketed because contraception isn't guaranteed. So I think that's quite it's something to take into consideration when you're out there in the wild
playing. But it's interesting because we're obviously about to talk to, I guess, Paul Morland, and he's a demographer, and we're talking about birth rates and how low the birth rates are, and essentially like we are not having enough babies to replace ourselves, and the economics
is like a worldwide
thing,
phenomenon.
So like in a couple of, not even like 100 years, but more like 20, 30 years, we're going to really feel that. And that's going to be a really negative thing globally. But, I think it's interesting. I think the older you get, the more ability you have to look at a lot of different things and be like, oh gosh, I don't know. But these more traditional ways of thinking, being, living and existing kind of they hold more purpose. Like they make more sense. Like, okay, don't have sex until you're married suddenly makes sense a little bit. It's as prudish as that sounds, but like not having sex with men who you would not want, or you're not sure, like just
or loveless sex.
Yeah. Like, okay, so if I just choose to have sex with this man, it's really highly likely that I could get pregnant. Is this man worthy of that?
Yeah. Yep.
And like, could he actually look after me and a baby? No. Okay. No, thanks. Because otherwise I'm going to have to go through, there's
and this is how we'll be treating our daughters.
You have sex, you get baby.
Think about the men that you're having sex with.
No, but like I sound like a total prude, and like my 20-year-old self would be like,
ew,
seriously grossed out by the things that I'm saying. But I do feel like the more you look at it and the more you kind of like dissect the different topics, they all interrelate. And I just feel like, on the topic of even
what are you going to do for your kids? Are you going to make them wait until are you going to?
Yeah, I'm going to lock them up.
Are you chastity bell?
Yes.
On all of you.
Well, this is a good time to say I think arranged marriage. I think arranged marriage even could be no.
Stay tuned for a road to wisdom.
I'm joking. I'm joking. But years. Like we all joke about it, like, but it's kind of like
it is.
I've got my eyes on your children for my children.
There should be at least one pair in there.
It can't be more than one because that's
poet and banjo. There seems to be a thing going there. But I actually haven't told you, or maybe I have, but we haven't spoken at length. So I'm currently doing vaginal kung fu with Kim and Ami.
Yeah.
And I'm only 2 weeks in, so everyone bear with me. But
are you lifting weights from your vag?
I will be. I will be. You know what? I might even do it on the podcast to just promote
that stuff.
I am. My pelvic floor is going to be. But I've like the first week is all about loving yourself and understanding your blocks around sex and sexual energy. And she goes through the gamut of like birth trauma, any sexual abuse, contraceptions. Like in what ways are you not listening to your body language. And like I go on and on about lube because that just blew my mind as lubrication being such a massive red flag for you overriding your body language. If you're not wet, you shouldn't be penetrated. And what women do all the time is just go for lube, coconut oil, whatever it is, to override their body saying, actually, no, not ready. And how that can basically shut down you from your body. Every time you don't listen, you're like severing another cord, right? And abortion was another one. So around like trust in your partner, if it was the partner that you're with right now, trust in your body or not listening to your body and knowing when that is, like that's another disconnection. I was like, my gosh, like we just don't talk about this as a whole nearly enough. But there's like she's going through all of it. I'm really excited. Ooh, we're going through I
actually think I want to do it.
Prolapse, urinary tract infections and yeast and like all of the sore gynae situations. And what was another one? And she's going through, I think, fertility awareness method later down the track. But it is so interesting. And gosh, she's got some incredible perspectives and like brings in like Jung and all these other philosophers into like this course that's all about being well fucked and having a amazing articulate vajayjay.
Everyone should do it. The vaginal kung fu.
I know. Actually, you know what? We'll link to our, we're going to plug our affiliate code. We'll link that in our show notes because I'm really enjoying it. So everyone should. But no, I'm really excited. I'll keep us up to date.
Well, it's just another one of those like umbrellas for all the things that we talk about. And you're like, oh, that clicks there, that clicks there, that clicks there.
100%.
Oh my gosh, that makes sense. I can't believe I didn't think about it. Like women's business is like so big. Like and so that's why I don't think you can have like that reductionist or individual kind of perspective on something and like allow those more mainstream hysteria points of view kind of infiltrate who we are as women. Like it's not
great
women.
Point.
Yeah.
Like, it is. Like when you look at all of those topics that like get this like massive, they're just, it's like a freaking hospital where you've got your brain surgeon and your heart surgeon and it's like it's all connected. Like the feminism and the abortions and the like the working and it's like it's all connected. It's all connected and it's all like disruptive in some kind of way, and we need to acknowledge it so then we can process it and we can move through it and that kind of thing. So it's really interesting.
Which is why I think women who admit that or have the ability to self-reflect and be like, you know what, I did have an abortion and may not have thought of anything. Like looking back, I'm glad I didn't have that baby, or that was like a really silly thing to have done and, you know, whatever. But I wish I didn't, or like, you know how that's.
Or I wish I had more information.
Wish I had more information, and I really
least,
wish I I didn't put myself in that position, or like, you know, I think it's always harder to admit that than to be like, you know, it's easier to just be like women's rights and all the things and not really
fall into it. Because from what we've seen, I guess that like the group of people who are really loud and like know like this is a woman's right, which I'm not going to argue against that, but they're like, you can't share this information because it's a woman's right to choose. It's like, but it's also a woman's right to have all the information when she makes that choice. And I think that was another thing that we kind of, I don't know if
but
you
also
heard
the other thing, no, I just had this thought, but I know what you're trying to say. And yes, but the other thing is it's like, you don't know what you don't know. And because all of us are so disconnected from our older women in our families, like we don't typically have the connection or relationship with our mums, aunties, grandmothers. A lot of this, you know, the stories or the, you know, it just would have been told to us. And so like a lot of us have to just make or go through an experience that's less than ideal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And get older to grow the perspective, what you really needed when you were 20. Yeah. You know, because I get it. Like when you're 20, you make choices that you wouldn't make as a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old.
I was like, I'm so old now. I can make my decisions.
And who do I think I am as a 35-year-old thinking that I know shit?
Yeah, yeah.
Because we actually are still figuring it out, but it's a longer road to wisdom. Because we all, you know, these nuclear little tiny families of ours.
They're not that tiny.
Ours aren't, but, you know, it's nice to allow women to speak, even if it is a little bit opposing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think maybe to give a voice for the people who feel like they can't at all.
Yeah.
And we'll shield you. We'll take the flack.
Yeah. But also a good time to mention that I really want to talk about Bonnie Blue.
Oh. So everyone else is listening is listening is just learning about this.
Today I just got really fired up about women selling their bodies on OnlyFans. I was like, hang on, how did we get here? How did it become so acceptable to have a little link in your link tree to your OnlyFans account? And I know I joke about it with getting an OnlyFans account for my feet, but everyone does.
Yeah. I think technically the market's saturated for feet. You probably wouldn't make that much money now.
No, and I said this the other day because if you know me, you know my feet are so gross. The hooves. I was like, maybe niche would be more like hooves, and I could get really hot putting lingerie over my cracked heel. I'm like you know what I'm saying? It gets snagged, a little snaggle.
Don't. I'm getting
it's turning you on, isn't it? Pay me. Anyway, I said that to my neighbor and he was like, ugh, stop. I was like, what? No, not my neighbor. Gail. Luke's. I said it to my friend's husband and he was like, you are disgusting. Stop. I was like, come on, it's niche. Give a girl some credit for being so creative. Anyway.
I'm going to put a foot out there, put a limb out there and say that it's probably a niche that's saturated market already.
Really?
Probably. I don't want to Google it because I don't want to ruin my algorithm.
I've got the stomach for it. I can handle it. But anyway, yeah, lots to talk about in the name of women understanding their shit.
How are we going for time?
We should probably get off and
wrap
chat
it
to
up.
Paul.
Yeah. All right. Well, we didn't actually get to address anyone who sent in topics to discuss. Sorry. I know there were things on surrogacy and finding your crew and
I don't remember that.
No.
Was that a Q&A from 4 years ago?
No, I put the Q&A up there today.
Guess who does our Instagram?
We also do want Candace Owens out there. So whoever had written about that, we'll seek her out maybe.
Is she even?
She's big dog now.
Is she even allowed to be broadcasted on any Australian channels? You can't stop us.
Surely she can. Yeah, we'll do it. It's overseas. Oh, by the way, okay. Also, everyone. Lastly, we are 100% shadow banned on Instagram. So again, if you could please go through, share, rinse, repeat, comment, do the little taggy save thing annoying. On our. I know
so much for Mark Zuckerberg saying
Daddy
freedom
Mark.
is. Yeah.
Daddy Mark, we're not going to shadow ban you anymore or censor you anymore. We are 100% censored. So, yes, friends, please help some ladies out. It's hard to get the word out there when
people don't like naughty words like
abortion and fire ant poisoning. Yeah, that's what we're getting done for.
Really?
Yeah, wait till we talk about birth rates. It's going to be...
Yeah.
I know.
We'll get there.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we will be back soon. Thanks for tuning in to the Road to Wisdom podcast. To join the journey, you can follow us on Instagram at theroadtowisdom.podcast and at www.theroadtowisdompodcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. We look forward to seeing you next week with more juicy content.